even like with dating in general, right? There's such a double standard between men and women. Like, oh, like for a man, if he's talking about going on multiple dates with multiple women, he's often applauded and seen as a player. Whereas if I were to go and, tell the exact same thing, like, oh, I'm just single, I'm dating, I'm having a lot of fun, I'm just living my life, dating like multiple men at the same time, I'll be seen in a different light and seen as like a
Okay.
hoe or a slut. And like where's the difference in that? You know what I mean? Like it's the same, like for both sides. Just men are seen differently as women.
No, I totally understand because that's one of the things that women do bring up all the time, right? Is why is there a double standard? But the thing is that the reason why there is a double standard is because of the biological differences because we're different as men and women. If that makes
We're
sense.
different, but you can't keep using that as an excuse to justify toxic behavior. Like I feel like it's time we put men accountable for their actions and hold them as such. Like we can't, if we keep tolerating shitty behavior, it's just going to keep happening unless we confront the situation. You know what I mean?
Okay, let me ask you this: is there's a standard where the men always have to pay for the date, right? And the women don't pay for the first date, right? So that
Yeah.
can be seen as a double standard. Like, why do I have to pay for the
Oh,
first date?
it totally is a double standard, even
Yeah,
that, but yeah.
but the thing is, I'm saying is like I know a lot of women will say there's a double standard, because we're different, right? It's just there's double standards for everything, and that's just reality. That's just life in general. There's always double standards. For men, for a lot of women, if I try to pursue a woman and go on a date with her, and I tell her, hey, uh, it's I want you to pay for the date, not me, or I want to share the date. I want to share the payment for the first date. A lot of women will be like, oh no, I don't like this, or they won't go on a date with me, or uh they won't reciprocate with the interest because most women want the man to pay for the date, which is fine
Yeah,
for
I
me. I
think
mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just I understand because we're different. There's double standards to it, and there's some things that double standards that benefit women and doesn't benefit men when it comes to the date. Right, we have to pay for the date. It is what it is. If you want to get attraction from women, when it comes to like I said, the example of the promiscuity, right? If a guy sleeps with a lot of women, he's seen as the player. If a woman sleeps with a lot of guys, he's gonna be seen as a whole. It's just,
yeah.
I mean, and that's just double standards that benefit women. There's double standards that benefit men. That's just the world. Like, what do you think?
It is, yeah, and that's my point exactly. There are these double standards that have existed since before our time, right? Another double standard that is just the way it is like even how us women have to be so cautious sometimes just being by ourselves outside. Like I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go on a run safely. I couldn't go on a run outside at night
Mm-hmm.
without having to worry about, oh, I need to tell someone where I'm going to be running, or I have to run at a certain time at a certain day, or I have to keep changing up my running routes because someone could be following me. Like men don't have to worry about that. They
Yeah,
never will have to worry about that.
but then I would say is if there is a war, right? There's a war. The first people that's expected to go to the war and die in the front lines would be men. Right? That's something you wouldn't have to worry about. It happens if there was like a war, there was a draft. What happens? It was Vietnam. There was a draft. Every young boy was sent. Was sent, and the women wasn't sent. I mean, you don't have to worry about that. So that's what I'm saying is like there's double standards to men and women, and for me, it's just like I don't have an issue with it because it's just because we're different as men and women. We have biological roles of things that we're expected to do. So yeah, like what do you think? What do you think about that? Does that make sense, or because
No, it makes
there's
sense,
yeah,
but it
there's a
makes
war.
sense. I get what you're saying, but
Yeah,
just because these double standards exist doesn't mean that they're right.
yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's not. I don't see it changing. Like
I
when
don't
there's a
see it changing, but like in the case where like even with like women and how they're they'll be treated by men, like like abusive relationships, it happens, but that doesn't always mean it's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to avoid that.
No, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about abuse, right? If we're talking about abuse, that's. I mean, there's no double standards when it comes to abuse. Like, we're just like when you, we were just talking about like dating, just the double standards in general. It's just there's double standards that benefit men and benefit women. It's just because I think a lot of the double standards come from is because of our biological differences. The reason why a man should be expected to go to war when there's conflict is because men are physically bigger, stronger than women. I wouldn't want to send the women to war for me, like, because it doesn't make sense. Like, she's a weaker sex. Send the men. So I think a lot of the biological the double standards we have comes from our gender roles and our biological differences. And for me, I think there's nothing wrong with that because it's just because we're different as men and women. There's some things that men are expected to do because we're men and should do because we're men, because that's how we're biologically built. And there's some things that women should do and are better at men. So there's some things women can do better than men. There's some things men can do better than women. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just because of our biological differences, there's certain roles, certain things that we can do in society that, because of how we're built biologically, that we're better at, we're better at it than the opposite sex. And I think it's okay. I think it's okay. But I do realize is for a lot of people is when especially for today in relationships, that a lot of times when I do see modern women is they'll complain about a double standard that doesn't benefit them, but then the double standard that does benefit them, they'll be okay with it. So
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's true, but also the fact that it even exists is problematic because you can use that, you can justify it and say, oh, it's due to like our biological differences. Yes, to a certain extent, because most of the time these double standards exist because they were put into place into society for so long that by men that didn't necessarily view women in an equal light. That's my point.
well, okay. Do you think that? I don't. Well, I think I would say a lot of the double standard just comes from like, I think like just from like you said, biological differences. Like for the war thing, right? That just makes sense. Like it's not because like men were just like what, men are better than women. I think just like when everything started, like they just realized, hey, we're just bigger, stronger. It just makes sense, right? When it comes to the date, right? Because we're the ones as men, we have to pursue you, right? So I think it's common sense for guys, like, what, since I'm the one pursuing you, and we want to make sure, we want to show you commitment, show you that we're serious, that as men, I want to show you like that I can provide for you, I can protect for you, because we're the ones initiating. So that's why I think all these things that all these double standards came from was just from our very biological nature, which, and that still has transcended like over throughout history, thousands of years of evolution. But I think double standards are always going to exist just because we're both. We can't truly be equal because we're different. There's certain things that men can do, and there's certain things that women can do. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, do you like for you? Do you like when you go on dates? Do you expect the man to pay on the first date?
I never expect the man to pay. I don't believe in that. So I
Okay.
always offer to pay at least my share of the meal.
Okay.
That's how I've always viewed dates
If
general.
if a guy said that he didn't want to pay, would you see him any different, or would you lose any attraction from him if he didn't want to pay? And say, you know what, I'll take you on a date, but I don't want to pay. Do you pay?
I mean, I'll pay if he's gonna get a second date. I don't know, like it just depends on the situation.
Like, how would you feel initially if a guy was like, you know what, I don't want to, I want you to pay, and would you lose attraction for that guy compared to the guy that, he'll ask you out, and he'll be like, I'll take care of everything, I got you.
I think a guy's financial like status, it's not that important. It's obviously important, but like I wouldn't, if I were to base it on if the guy paid or didn't pay, that wouldn't influence my attraction for him.
You wouldn't. I mean, if there were two guys that asked you on a date and one proposed to pay and one didn't propose to pay, which one would you say yes to? And
I'd go to both. Because
go to both?
like especially if you're like on a first date, you don't really know that much about a person. You're essentially strangers. I think that's why, because I think the second date is more important to me.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
no worries. Have you I'm like, do you usually pay for every like all the dates you've been going so far? Do you usually pay for the dates or the guys pay for
No,
the date?
it's evenly split between us.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think too, if you're the one asking out someone, like it's probably a good idea that you at least offer to pay. Um, but
Yeah.
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 That
That's what
goes
I'm
for
saying.
both genders too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but like that's what I'm saying is like even so you said it's a good idea to pay, so that would be that would still be a double standard if you still expect it as a good idea, right?
Yeah, but like that's also for the girl too. Like if you asked like a guy you were interested out on a date, you should at least offer to pay, if not even pay for the whole date, because you're the one asking that person out.
Yeah, but yeah, but it's just in society like most women will never ask guys out. Like 99% of the time it's the man.
Um,
I mean, if you want to compare like
I don't think that's quite necessarily true. I mean, with like even today, like with just like dating apps, right? Um, I've seen both sides do the pursuing, but yeah.
oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of women that do ask guys out, but I'm just saying it's like in general, like the majority, it's like majority of that want the person that initiates the date or the
Mhm.
ask them out is like I would say like it would be like 99% of it is gonna be like the man.